It's no secret to anyone that Super Mario is one of the most influential and prevalent figures in gaming. For almost 40 years, he has kept the entire gaming industry under his influence, and his games reach and define genres far past just the core platformers. Beyond stomping Goombas and Koopas, Mario can be frequently seen in video games go-karting, playing golf, playing tennis, playing basketball, teaching kids typing, beating the shit out of Sonic, racing Sonic, partying, working demolition, playing baseball, time traveling, operating robotic toys, and even dancing. Basically, if it exists, it's probably on Mario's resume. You might make the assumption that Mario spin-offs exist solely as cash grabs. Nintendo takes a golf game and adds Mario on it for the extra sales. But in reality, Mario spin-offs are very often some of the best and most important games their genre has to offer. For example, where would racing games be without Mario Kart? Where would party games be without Mario Party? Where would puzzle games be without Hotel Mario? Okay, that's not the best example. What is a great example, however, is Mario's collection of RPG adventures. These are awesome games. It's not uncommon for hardcore Mario fans to say one of the Mario RPGs is their favorite Mario game. I've certainly seen it. In my first video game countdown ever, I listed my top 10 favorite Mario games, and in that video, I gave the Mario RPGs some high praise, notably giving the #1 spot to Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Nowadays, I don't know if I would still put Paper Mario 2 that high, but it would certainly be considered. I replayed it a couple months ago, and was just reminded of how absolutely fantastic of an RPG it is. I had only planned to play the first hour or so because I needed footage for a previous video, but I ended up doing the whole game in a matter of 3 or 4 days. It's just so enjoyable to play. You guys aren't bullies, right? Guess again, nerd! Paper Mario is a series well regarded for its creativity, gameplay, story, characters, puzzles, sense of humor, and consistency. Well, not its consistency. Some Paper Mario games are, in my opinion, a lot better than others. This series has had games that are actually some of my favorites of all time, and it's also had games that I despise. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Paper Mario Sticker Star. Without a doubt, one of the most controversial games in the series, for its radical departure from the set Paper Mario formula. It's a game that I quickly grew to resent as a kid for that very reason, but I'm revisiting it today, to see if it really is as bad as I remember. So, let's jump in. To truly understand the progression of the Paper Mario series, we have to go all the way back to 1996, the year we were blessed with the game Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. The game was developed by Square, the company behind major role-playing games like Final Fantasy. Their games had been popular in Japan, but they were struggling to win the attention of Western audiences. The hope for Mario RPG was to make a game that could help bridge the gap between the stupid Westerners and role-playing games, and it really worked. It wasn't an easy task though. Taking a Final Fantasy game and just slapping Mario on the cover wasn't something they wanted to do. So they took efforts to replace RPG standards, like swords and dragons, with things that fit into the Mario universe. They also implemented a system of action commands. Mario games were popular for their platforming, and Square seek to replicate the fun of jumping on enemies and using fire flowers by giving players the opportunity to do certain button sequences while using special moves to be more powerful. If you press A while jumping on an enemy, it does more damage, for example. One of my favorite things about Mario RPG is how it wasn't just another usual Mario story. The villain isn't even Bowser, it's some weird weapon metal guy named Smithy, who came from another dimension to take over the Mushroom Kingdom or something. Mario and Bowser end up having to team up to fight this common threat, and god damn, that's just so cool. It was a game that tried to be something different, and did a stellar job. It had Gino. He's an excellent rapper. I dressed up as him when I was 10. Hey. Have you heard about that Mario game? What? You mean, yeah, the one with Mallow. Yeah. I just can't help but love this game. It did such an excellent job at fusing the feeling of both a great Nintendo game and a great Square Enix game, and playing it is so nostalgic for me. It really breathes so much life into the Mario world, which, no offense Miyamoto, for the most part before this was primarily just a setting for platforming. Unfortunately, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars never got a proper sequel. Or did it? Because the next famous Mario RPG, Paper Mario, was originally being developed for the Nintendo 64 DD, and its development name was Super Mario RPG 2, though the name didn't stick. Paper Mario ended up being more of a spiritual sequel to Mario RPG. It had returning elements like the action time commands, certain locations, and more. It still felt like it had the same mission statement, even with the pretty large change in art style with the whole paper DIY theme and aesthetic. You take Mario on an awesome MacGuffin collecting adventure with all sorts of cool characters. It's the same idea. The story was a bit simpler this time around, but it was still super enjoyable, especially because the writing was even funnier than the last games. It also introduced the system of partners. While Mario RPG had 5 playable characters and let you use 3 at a time, Paper Mario changed things up. It introduced partners, which were characters that joined Mario and provided him assistance both in and out of battle. Mario could use one partner at a time, and they were all their own unique and fleshed out characters. While Mario games in the past portrayed Goombas and Koopas as enemies for Mario to stomp on, this game turned them into characters with desires and beliefs, which to me is so awesome. The game was great. It's certainly one of my favorites on the Nintendo 64. A few years later, Paper Mario was due for a new game on the Nintendo GameCube. It was a game that needed to be bigger, better, and prettier. And well... Oh, fuck, this game is so good! Oh my god, oh my god! The name Thousand Year Door is really accurate because games like these only come out every 1,000 years. Probably. From the moment you start, you find yourself in an RPG that brings out all the stops. Pretty much everything that was good in Paper Mario is even better here. The story, the characters, the bosses, the partners, just everything is so fantastic. My god, there's so much love put into this game that I just adore it. Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, is a certified hood classic. The game was followed by a more controversial title, which was Super Paper Mario. This title was different from the other RPGs, as it wasn't really an RPG. Super Paper Mario became a side-scroller game with RPG and puzzle elements. You jump over obstacles and stuff, but you also have to manage things like items, health, and experience points. One of the biggest things they advertised about this game was the fact that Mario could swap between 2D and 3D, and there are a lot of puzzles where you need to use that mechanic. It really did take this whole the world is paper gimmick to a new level, especially with the art style. The locals in this game's hub world town are these weird geometric shaped people that look like they were designed in Microsoft fucking PowerPoint. This is a general pattern with the characters. Everything and everyone is bizarrely solid and angular. It's really weird, and the minimalism here is unlike any other Mario game. I remember browsing comment sections and forum posts about how bad this game was as a kid. It made a lot of controversial changes, and a lot of fans of the first 2 titles in the series were pretty mad. The removal of the RPG battle system stung a lot, but the decision to remove partners as well? Man, that's cruel. The game did try to replace partners with these weird fairy things called pixels. Like partners, they could be used to handle obstacles in the real world, but they had little to no personality. While partners would talk a lot throughout the story, the pixels pretty much introduced themselves and never talked again. The setting of this game is also just super weird. The first 2 Paper Mario games take place in the vicinity of the Mushroom Kingdom. This one takes place in what's basically an entirely different dimension. There are like no Toads or typical Mario enemies for the most part. The new character designs are unlike anything in Mario games, let alone the Paper Mario games. It's like Cubist in a way. I remember a lot of people disliking Super Paper Mario when it first came out, but honestly, the game had the last laugh because it's really great. First of all, Super Paper Mario may have been conceptually weird, but even still, it had a fantastic story, without a doubt the best in the series. It's told on a scale that reaches much farther than its predecessors, and the weird change in world design really shows how far Mario and the gang are from home. Mario and his friends need to collect the pure hearts to stop Count Bleck from destroying the entire universe and everything in existence. That gigantic purple thing in the back is the Void, basically a break in reality that's slowly growing that will eventually consume all that exists. It's pretty dope. There were a lot of things that still felt similar. Even with the huge change in gameplay, the puzzles still feel familiar. The writing has the same mix of humor, creativity, and emotion. The story feels paced very similarly to The Thousand Year Door. There are returning tropes, like a character in the main town who will cook items for you. Really, even though we lost a lot of Paper Mario's core elements, it still feels like a Paper Mario game. There's not a shred of the creativity, ingenuity, and general passion lost in its bizarre transition to a side-scroller, and that's really respectable. I love Super Paper Mario, and I consider it to be on the same level as Paper Mario and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. If there's anything we learned, it's that Paper Mario is a surprisingly enduring concept. Even with huge changes in its mechanics and world design, it can still be fantastic. It's a really flexible series. Right, guys? Right? Right? Picture this. It's summer of 2010. Nintendo has recently announced the upcoming new handheld console, the 3DS. They show off some concepts for games coming on the system, and it looks a bit barren, but then you hear about a new Paper Mario game in development. There's no footage, but what we do get is a few select screenshots. Is that a partner? Is this game gonna have partners? Wait, curtains? Curtains! We're going back. It's gonna be okay. Paper Mario fans rejoiced. The new game was gonna be a turn-based RPG. There were going to be partners. Paper Mario was returning to its roots. It's really hard to put into words the wide shift in my emotions that day, the day I first played Paper Mario Sticker Star. It's difficult to express how quickly my glee became disappointment, and how quickly my disappointment became anger. Paper Mario Sticker Star was not the game I wanted. It was not the game I'd hoped for. I never finished the game as a kid. I stopped at the second world. I couldn't bear to complete it. It wasn't worth the time for me. But it's been 8 years. I'm older now. My taste in games has changed. Perhaps Paper Mario Sticker Star has something I can appreciate that I miss as a kid. So that's what we're here to find out. Let's begin. Paper Mario's art style has always been pretty simple. Besides the obvious gimmick of characters being flat and everything, the textures use a lot of solid colors with little shading. It's pretty straightforward and pleasant to look at. Paper Mario Sticker Star, for the most part, carries on the basic tradition. It keeps up the simplicity, but this time around it takes the paper mechanic a lot farther than previous games. While Super Paper Mario looks like it was made in MS Paint, Paper Mario Sticker Star looks like it was made with arts and crafts. A lot of props and levels are overtly supposed to look like they're made of cardboard or folded construction paper. It's like a diorama. In the game, you'll see a lot more visual gags related to the characters being made of paper than you would have seen in previous installments. There's a scene where like 10 toads are all stacked within a cupboard together and they all fall out like sheets of paper. Later on, some toads will bend and fold each other to make a staircase for Mario to use. This kind of stuff isn't completely new to the series, but Sticker Star certainly takes it to new heights. The music also takes a noticeable shift in direction. The music of Paper Mario in the GameCube and Wii era is defined by its use of electronic bleeps and bloops and drum machines. This was pretty common for Nintendo games at the time. However, as we moved into the 2010s and stuff, a lot of Nintendo games made the move of ditching those sounds and replacing them with more traditional live instrumentation. Paper Mario Sticker Star noticeably adds a lot of brass in its music, giving the soundtrack a jazzy flair. Honestly, I have mixed feelings on this kind of stuff. The new art and sound design of the game is something I think a lot of people actually like, and I can see why. The game's art is made competently, and it has its charm. But personally, I'm not too big a fan. I really like the weird and bizarre look of Super Paper Mario. I've always been a fan of GameCube-era Nintendo music, and kind of wish Nintendo used it more. But with that being said, these changes are fine, and not really a big deal. In an alternate universe where this game did what I wanted to in terms of gameplay design and story, but kept its new sound and direction, I probably wouldn't even notice it.
You can't trust anyone, 'cause you're untrustable.
Sticker Star starts out at the yearly Sticker Festival, a celebration of stickers in the Mushroom Kingdom that takes place whenever the Sticker Comet comes down for the people to make wishes. You see Mario, Peach, and like 100 Toads, all having a good time until Bowser shows up. He touches the Sticker Star and shit gets real. He is granted the most powerful royal sticker, which makes him really strong, and kidnaps Peach, and now Mario has to save her. What? That's basically it. That's the entire conflict. There's no ulterior motives for Bowser, there are no villains who are aligned differently, nothing. Bowser might as well have been hiding in a fucking cake. This is the setup, and man, it's really embarrassing for a game series that prides itself on breaking Mario's narrative conventions. It's so funny to me that, spoiler alert, the game's final level is literally just Bowser's castle, when previous Mario RPGs have started there. Super Paper Mario starts out with Peach disappearing, so Mario and Luigi show up at Bowser's castle, assuming he'd kidnapped her. They find out he was not involved and doesn't even know where Peach is, and suddenly some top-hatted Microsoft PowerPoint-looking chap phases in talking about prophecies in the apocalypse, like the homeless guy who lives under a bridge at my college campus, and reveals he's kidnapped Princess Peach, and then kidnaps Bowser and his minions in some bizarre black hole thing to host a wedding to create a powerful heart object that has the power to destroy the entire universe. It's a way of telling the player that this game isn't a normal Mario game. The stakes are a lot higher, and the adventure is a lot bigger. The story is a lot more complex, and the traditional rivalry between Mario and Bowser is gonna have to be put aside to defeat a common enemy. Sticker Star is literally taking all that momentum and bringing it down to zero. The story is as simple as it sounds. For me, the gesture of making Bowser the villain just shows how little thought was put into giving this game a narrative.
Fucking hell. Mario Odyssey has a cooler story than this.
The only moderately surprising thing about this game's narrative is how anticlimactic it is. There's nothing that will catch you off guard.
Paper Mario and Mario RPGs in the past have had simple setups for sure, but this time it's different. Because even with a simple overarching story, these games would find life in the subplots that take place during individual chapters.
Paper Mario's story was pretty simple, but each individual chapter had its own challenges, struggles, and characters that gave it life. Paper Mario Sticker Star never does this. Every chapter, if you could even call them chapters, is just a sequence of puzzles and enemies you need to pass through. And it's not like these chapters are breaking any boundaries at all. Remember in the 1000-Year Door how there was a chapter that was centered on a professional wrestling league that Mario had to become the champion of, while also trying to solve a quasi-murder mystery involving the league and its executives? That was really fucking cool. Sticker Star has nothing like that. It's just a generic plains world, a generic desert world, a generic forest world, a generic snow world, and a generic jungle volcano world. Pretty much all of these have been done before in Paper Mario's history with, get this, character.
And I mean that in a literal sense, by the way, because this game doesn't have any characters.
The main two characters are Mario and Kirsty. Kirsty is from the Sticker Star, and is a floating sticker noble or something who works with Mario to collect all the royal stickers to bring back the Sticker Comet and go home. There's Peach, who barely appears at all. Bowser's here, and doesn't even fucking talk. Literally, he doesn't talk at all. Everything he does in the game is just silent. Nothing. I'm making a big deal out of this because Bowser in the past has been one of the funniest characters in the Mario RPGs. And, finally, there are no fucking partners. Apparently, during development, the developers thought that partners didn't really fit into Sticker Star as a game, so they just got rid of them. It's just Mario and Kirsty the whole way through. Bye-bye, unnamed chain chomp. Like, I know this is redundant, but partners bring so much life and character into the Paper Mario series. Characters like Vivian, Lake Alester, Bobbery, Lady Bo, they're all just thrown out. Partners are one of the best parts of the earlier games. It was always so much fun having them join your party and suddenly having all these new options both in and out of battle. Beyond just being fun characters, they brought new gameplay opportunities. You've probably seen this graphic before. It's used a lot when discussing the changes that were done in the Paper Mario series, and god, it is depressing. Honestly, one of the most underrated things about Paper Mario is how they give the Mario universe so much more depth, and how they use already existing elements to make the world even more interesting for an RPG. In the first two games, they took the basic design of the Toad and reimagined it in so many ways. The games create Toads of different social statuses, professions, and lifestyles. It gives the world of the game that extra pizzazz that makes the Mario world that much more interesting. And this doesn't apply to just the Toads. I sort of mentioned this already with the partners, but those are characters that also exemplify this point. Goombella, for example, is a female Goomba who studies archaeology at the supposed University of Goom. I don't know why, but I just love that detail. It turns what were for a long time just nameless enemies that Mario had to jump on in the main series into members of a fictional race with their own society, culture, and traditions. This is something I feel like Paper Mario fans really like, but don't point out enough. There's no shred of civilization in Sticker Star. There's no unique recurring characters besides a few goofy Toads who don't even have unique sprites. There's like 2 towns, and that's it. It's just the same shit. And this isn't me being exceedingly harsh. The developers of Paper Mario literally admit this. In an interview with Games Radar, longtime producer and supervisor of the series Kensuke Tanabe was quoted saying, "From the production of Paper Mario Sticker Star onwards, we were no longer able to graphically represent individual characteristics, such as age, gender, etc., in the Toad NPCs, non-playable characters, and so it has become that much more important to convey their personalities simply through text." He also said in a VGC interview that, since Paper Mario Sticker Star, it's no longer possible to modify Mario characters or to create original characters that touch on the Mario universe. That means that if we aren't using Mario characters for bosses, we need to create original characters with designs that don't involve the Mario universe at all, like we've done with Ollie and the stationary bosses. It's not 100% clear where this restriction comes from, but a lot of people seem to speculate it comes directly from Miyamoto. In a 2012 Iwata Asks that took place around the release of Sticker Star, Tanabe was quoted saying, "Aside from wanting us to change the atmosphere a lot, there were 2 main things that Miyamoto-san said from the start of the project. It's fine without a story, so do we really need one?"
What?
And, as much as possible, complete it with only characters from the Super Mario world. The Iwata Asks also talks about the core design elements of Mario games, and how Miyamoto values relating form and function. He wants a character's unique visual elements to be intertwined with how they serve the gameplay, and the fancy clothing the older games put on Toads kind of don't do that. They also talk about how cool stickers are and how making some questionable design choices that we'll be talking about later was actually a great idea.
So, yeah, I don't really like the story and characters in Paper Mario Sticker Star. But with that being said, let's get into the gameplay.
It was pretty exciting when it was revealed that Paper Mario Sticker Star was going to be turn-based. A lot of people didn't really like the side-scrolling gameplay of Super Paper Mario, so going back to the RPG format was a very exciting development for a lot of people. The series was going back to its roots, right? Right? We were in for quite the surprise. So, yes, the game did have a turn-based battle system, but, god. How do I say this? It's pretty bad. So, when you look at this game's title, you'll notice the word sticker. This is a major part of the game right here. Now, to be fair to the game, I like stickers, like most people. Who doesn't enjoy putting a few stickers on their water bottle, or their notebook, or their laptop? But, you know, there is such a thing as too many stickers, and I think Paper Mario Sticker Star is getting there. I've dipped my toes into the story already, but I'll remind you, the story takes place because the sticker comet that comes from the sticker planet is broken into individual sticker crowns by Bowser, and Mario and his sticker alien friend have to save the world by using stickers as weapons.
So, yeah, if you're wondering how much this game stretches the sticker concept, it's run pretty paper thin.
The battle system in Sticker Star is, turn-based, but it's a far departure from the typical combat you're used to. Gone are special moves, flower points, badges, star points, and a lot more. It's still turn-based, but it's completely different. So, in most traditional RPGs, the protagonist usually has a few options for fighting. The basics tend to include physical attacks which don't cost any form of special resource or anything, or magic attacks which cost SP, MP, or mana. Sticker Star doesn't have either. In this new magical world of Paper Mario, stickers are how people fight each other. Mario can't jump on an enemy without the power of a jump sticker. He can't use his hammer without the power of a hammer sticker. It's strange. You keep your stickers in your sticker book, and some of them take up different amounts of space. Each sticker can only be consumed once, and after you use it, it's gone forever. It's kind of like if you were playing an earlier Paper Mario game, but you were only allowed to use items. It's pretty bare bones. Some enemies are more vulnerable to certain stickers and stuff, but it's not something you really need to put a lot of mental effort into, especially because of how simplified they made the action commands. In previous games, different attacks involved different button presses and inputs to execute. Sometimes it was pressing the right button at the right time, or pressing certain buttons in a certain order, or even full-on minigames. But this time, there's pretty much nothing. Like, all the attacks require you to just press A at the right time. And there's no visual indicator of when, really, except some sparkly particle effects. Half the time you just end up guessing when you're supposed to press the button, which works okay with jumps and stuff, but it's not always reliable. This becomes especially problematic with rarer stickers, because you not only tend to use them when you're in a difficult situation, a lot of the time you will use them and have no idea what they do and what the action commands are supposed to be. Stickers can be found all over the levels, so although you are constantly using them, you're constantly getting them back. You can also roll a slot machine thing for the opportunity to use more than one sticker in battle, which is useful for large hordes of enemies or bosses. But honestly, none of this stuff matters. Fighting in this game is basically useless because there are no experience points. None. You don't level up, you don't pick a bonus, you don't get any rewards. Nothing. Well, nothing except coins, I guess, but the only significant use of coins is getting stickers, which are found all over the place. There's literally no benefit to fighting enemies. The way you gain health, which is pretty much the only stat you have in the game, is by picking up HP up hearts, which are hidden throughout the levels. That's it. I know some of you are thinking, well, fighting enemies probably benefits you because... No, it really doesn't. The only reason I don't recommend literally running from every single enemy is because the chances of running successfully seems to be random, and a lot of the time it just won't work, so you might as well just fight. But if it's not a boss, there's really no benefit to fighting it. Speaking of bosses, let's talk about those. Bosses have always been a super fun part of Paper Mario. There are just so many classics like the Koopa Bros, Mr. L, and Cortez, just to name 3. So how does Paper Mario Sticker Star handle?
They're not good.
I remember playing this game for the first time and just being distraught at how stupid the first boss was. From a series where the final boss of a chapter is almost always a highlight, we get something as anticlimactic as a bunch of Goombas organized as a repeating pattern on a sheet of paper. That's it. They're like that because of the royal sticker or something. I don't really care. We then get, wow, a large pokey. You guys are really taking this stuff to the next level, huh? New Super Mario Bros., a game with no dialogue, has bosses with more personality than these. I will admit, though, that the bosses get better later on. I'm still not super impressed with Petey Piranha or Gooper Blooper, but at least it's not Goombas on a piece of shiny sticker paper.
They really take the paper gimmick too far with this game.
Like, I've always enjoyed the paper art style of the series, but god damn, literally everything in this game is related to paper in some way. Even some of the status effects are paper inspired, like your character being crumpled up, covered in water, or stuck to a surface with a thumbtack. Something else that Sticker Star introduced were things. Fitting the whole "this is all imaginary" theme of the game, things are three-dimensional real-world objects that Mario can harness the power of to use against his enemies. You can find them scattered throughout the levels, and they tend to be pretty useful. You can cut your enemies up with scissors, or roll them over with a bowling ball, or get a goat to eat them. Honestly, the concept of things doesn't bother me too much. It's a bit goofy, but it's cute. It reminds me of the Lego Movie and how a tube of glue is a weapon of mass destruction, but the execution is pretty rough. I mean, I complained earlier about the unclear action commands, but I'm more bothered by how the game forces you to use them. Most of the bosses have extremely high health pools, so it's near impossible to beat them without the use of a certain thing sticker. So, if you don't have the sticker you need and you're fighting the boss, you're shit out of luck. In this scenario, you have to run and find the sticker. There's a lot of backtracking in this game because of that, and if you don't even know the specific sticker you need to progress, your play session of Paper Mario Sticker Star will quickly grind to a halt. This isn't just a problem with the bosses, by the way. A lot of levels have puzzles that require you to use one of the thing stickers to progress. In the 4th level of the first world, you'll run into a landscape with a windmill, and if you're like me, you'll notice the windmill building is locked. You browse all of the accessible land twice but don't find anything. What you're supposed to do is go back to level 2 and pick up the fan thing to use as a sticker in the level.
Duh! Why the fuck did they put this stage in the Smash Bros. Paper Mario level?
And this is one of the better examples, because at least you get the fan thing like 2 levels before this one. Later in the game, you'll have puzzles that require a certain sticker from a completely different world, and if you don't have it, you have to spend like 10 minutes getting it before you can go back and continue the level. That's assuming you even know what sticker you need. If you don't, then, well, either search it up online, or get ready to spend a few hours solving the puzzle through trial and error. This also really encourages hoarding, because you never know if you'll need a certain thing later on, so you'll find yourself holding onto the goat sticker for 2 chapters or something, just in case. And of course, the thing stickers take up more space than normal stickers, because of course they do.
Wow! This is so much fun!
The levels in this game are nothing special most of the time. Aesthetically, they tend to be boring as hell. I'll concede that the puzzles and challenges tend to be passable, with the obvious exception of parts where the game expects you to have a thing sticker from the other side of the world map. Like Super Paper Mario, the levels are split up in a world-stage format. 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and so on. Apparently this was done to make the game easier to pick up and play. Though honestly, the game isn't very linear, especially in the later worlds. Beyond just the backtracking you do to get old stickers, the game often requires you to go back to old levels to unlock new exits or get important items. World 3 is one of my favorites for this very reason, where you have to go back and forth between levels to unlock parts of the forest and find the royal sticker. It actually kind of reminds me of Super Mario World, with all of its secret exits and alternate pathways. My favorite level without a doubt is the Haunted Mansion. It was honestly a blast, and really stood out among the others. But it was really the exception to the rule. Most of the levels don't really do much for me, especially since so many of the challenges they throw at you aren't really engaging and just waste your time. So, what do we have here? It's an RPG with a bare-bones story, a bare-bones combat system, and bare-bones levels. And what did we get instead? Stickers. A casual sticker adventure. And if you read the interviews, it's just insane how they talk about it. I mean, no offense guys, but the way you're describing the creative process of making this game just blows my mind. At first, we were making a lot of individual allies as in a regular RPG, but when we decided to focus on stickers, in order to make the clear change to the previous games in the series, it was like we started all over again by throwing out the system, including those characters that we had made up to that point. We decided to make it so that players would face stronger opponents by throwing out the whole concept of experience points and levels in favor of gradually gathering stronger stickers. They're basically saying what I'm saying, but like it's a good thing.
You know, the more I think about this, the angrier I honestly get. Why would you force all these rules and regulations on a game series like this? Paper Mario was fine. It didn't need to be made more casual. It didn't need to be made pick up and play or whatever. As I read all these articles about creative decisions made by the staff in Miyamoto, I feel like I'm going crazy. Why would they make all these decisions? How did they think removing the story and characters and overemphasizing this paper sticker mechanic was a good idea? I don't think I know a single person who prefers games like Sticker Star over the original 3. I know some people who enjoy them nonetheless, but they all generally say that they prefer the first 3 games. So why are Miyamoto and the devs at Intelligent Systems so stubborn about this? Why would they do this to their own games? It's almost like it's intentional. Like this is being done on purpose. Oh no!
Wait, you're the Shigeru Miyamoto?
私はあなたを捕まえてあなたを私のセドレにするためにここに来ました。
Destroy the Paper Mario series? Why? They're some of the best Mario games.
俺の地下の中に少女が融合入るんだ。彼たちは悲鳴は決して聞かれません。
Why? Why did you take the story out of all the Paper Mario games? The games were fantastic. We all loved them. I just don't understand.
ねえ、知ってる。警察官の4%が的な暴力を駆使しています。
What are you talking about?
従わない場合は、あなたは力強く女性に変身します。
It won't be that easy. One thing I don't understand is why? Why would you want to destroy some of your best games?
そこがポイントよ。ヤギはすごいね。私はヤギ好きです。ヤギの農場があればいいのに。
What do you mean?
何言ってたか、てめえ。マリオストーリーの卒業クラスでは一番だった俺は嘘のニンテンドに話して極秘の使命関わったし、こ年昼は300里以上なんだぞ。遊撃戦兵で、ニンテンドの最高のプログラマだ。てめえ、なんてありがたりの目標。それだけ。間違いない。このように見たことない。正確に僕はすぞ。ムラムラしている時は夢とのみ雑草をたくさん吸います。それからマリオカートとマリオゴルフをします。マリオのスピンオフが大好きです。しかし、マリオストーリーがやってきた。毎日何千人もの女性とセックスをしています。私は彼たちのケツを食べる。今、お前の美味しいマンコとケツは私の売春婦です。お前がどのように感じるかしていますか？飲酒運転についてあなたに陰気の耐える愚かなやりまん。たるしない。違うよ。マリオストーリーは私の地下室の人々がプレイするゲームです。私はそれらを繰りして食べます。ムラムラしてな。ノンストップでセックスしたいです。だから私はマリオストーリーを破壊することを選びました。スタッフが人するになるんで私のチンチンをしゃぶりました。正義よ。
You shouldn't think about it that way.
何？
Mario is an awesome franchise and has some of the greatest games ever made. But you don't need to worry about which game is better than which, because they're all great in their own unique ways. Miyamoto-san, you are a fantastic video game developer. You've revolutionized gaming as an art form. We're all better off because of you. You don't need to worry this much about one little spin-off series.
私はそのようには考えませんでした。
It's alright. I'm glad we were able to talk this out together.
ありがとう、スイッチ。私は君を過小評価する。
So, does this mean we can go back to traditional Paper Mario games?
いや。
You know, on some level, I can understand the choices this game made.
If this game kept with the stickers battle mechanic, but also tried to fit in special attacks and partners and all that crazy stuff, it probably would have been a mess. There'd be too much going on and everything would feel out of place. So I'll concede to the developers that the stickers and the partners probably couldn't have coexisted. Something I will concede to this game is that it knows what it wants to be. The sticker mechanic is clearly thought through, and the guys who made the game clearly put a lot of thought into it. But what did we lose in the process of this cute sticker novelty? Well, we lost one of the most fantastic role-playing game series ever. Making changes can sometimes be a good thing. I'll admit that. A game series that never evolves is never gonna do well. Sometimes you need to lighten the load of some elements to focus on new ideas. But Sticker Star essentially lightens the load of an awesome RPG adventure to focus on being a pick up and play puzzle game with nothing that makes it interesting for longer than an hour. It's depressing. One of the crown jewels of Mario for hardcore Nintendo fans becomes a sticker simulator with about as much personality as the series' most uninteresting spin-offs. I don't like this game. Just at its core, its basic concept, it's misguided. It throws away everything that makes its predecessors great for a few cute sticker puns and paper-inspired aesthetics. It was so disappointing when I was a kid, and although the visceral hatred for it that I had as a kid is gone, I still just don't see much value in it. There's nothing for me here, and if you're a hardcore fan of the first 3 games, there's probably not much for you either. It doesn't seem like Nintendo has any plans to stop using the Sticker Star formula in the series' future, with games like Color Splash and Origami King. And that's really a shame. But I guess I should still be happy that we still have the first games. 3 awesome RPG adventures that I can play over and over again and never get bored. So I guess I'm doing okay. Thanks for watching.